Yep, you're exactly right about that. You have Will Anderson at the top, who screams Khalil Mack to me, just the early version of Khalil Mack when he was with the Raiders, early days with the Bears. That's the kind of player I think he can be. But after him, it's two things about the tier under him. It's a cluster of guys that where they stack up is going to change team to team because of scheme and the skill sets of guys like Miles Murphy, Tyree Wilson, Nolan Smith. And, after those guys, there's another drop off. So as deep as this class is, and it is deep, and when I say deep, there's probably 35 to 40 draftable grades at edge rusher, right? But it's not overly top heavy. Last year, you had a little bit more talent at the top of the draft at the edge position. But out of all the guys that came out last year and all the guys in this class, I still think Will Anderson is the best edge prospect we've seen since Chase Young.
And is he pretty much, I mean, anybody that, like, let's see, right now there's a really good possibility that he's going to go to Arizona. I mean, that's what we've been talking about. And I know, matter of fact, I think the last time we let me just update the Ourlads depth chart page, and it still has a 3-4, which all right fits with Anderson. The question I'm having is wait a second. Jonathan Gannon came from 4-3 principles with the Eagles. So how is that defense? I wonder how he's going to put the defense together. So I guess the question is, whenever you have a really great player like Will Anderson, it's not going to really matter. But how does he wind up getting used when you are running a 4-3 compared to a 3-4?
It's a great question, because I do think if there's one thing that would scare me a little bit is if you are running a true 4-3 front. Is he big enough to hold up on the outside? Now, he is effective enough. There's no question there. Alabama actually put him inside, head up on the tackle or inside the tackle almost twice as often as they did in 2021. And I actually think that curtailed his production a little bit. But one thing it did was prove that he can handle the rigors of trench play, like dirty, mixing it up, not always playing in space, a lot of traffic, and he held up at a very high level. That's one of the reasons why I feel so safe with him, that even if he does not blossom into a 15 sack per year type guy, he's still going to be a very, very well-rounded player. You're not taking him off the field in short yardage. But the question will be, at that size, can he hold up? Normally, guys on a 4-3 front, they don't hold up if they're 250 pounds. So, I do believe that they can curtail the scheme a little bit around him. I mean, look what they did with Hassan Reddick, but they also did with Josh Sweat. Like, there are things you can do to your front to make it work around a player that you're going to build around. And Will Anderson is a player that you will build around.
All right. So we've got the gap. And next up, you have Murphy, Wilson, and Smith. And you're saying that kind of group is the next phase here. And that means pretty much it can go in any order. Where are these guys going to get drafted? Are they all top 15 players?
I'd say top 20. And I think some of that is more about the demand. Yes, everyone wants edge rushers, but there's a lot of teams in there that are going to go elsewhere with their needs. So I would say I'd put a lot of money on the fact that all three will be taken in the top 20. But who goes where and what order they go in is anyone's guess right now, because look at these three players, Murphy, Wilson, Nolan Smith. They're completely different players, right? Miles Murphy is your traditional 4-3 defensive end. High energy, probably the best athlete of the position. But also, you could also make the argument he's the most underdeveloped when it comes to rush moves, having a plan, and showing the ability to consistently use counter moves. That's a problem at the next level. You can't just beat guys initially unless you have special burst, special bend, which he does not. But he has the size, he has the speed, but you need to see that he has, a repertoire of moves that he can count on and adjust last second. Tyree Wilson is kind of like an inside-outside threat. I actually think if you only line him up on the outside, you're not going to get him to his potential. I think some of his best tape is when he's head up on the tackle or even rushing in the inside shoulder of the tackle. And Nolan Smith, incredibly undersized for the edge role, but he's also the most explosive, very underrated run defender, violent player, and intangible-wise, there isn't going to be a coach in the NFL that does not fall in love with this kid. So you're going to want him in your locker room. You're going to want him on
No
the
matter what
practice
scheme
field.
you
The
run.
question, yeah, you'll make things work for him. And he does show natural ability. Remember, this was the number one, not that this matters that much, but he was the number one overall recruit out of high school. And because of the athleticism and how natural he can drop into coverage. And he could probably even play some off-ball type role in the NFL, Hassan Reddick type. So let's really kind of just go into this draft saying, hey, I'll make a prediction. I'll put a mock draft. We'll do a mock draft on where these guys go out. But it's anyone's guess that who's going to be the second one off the board.
Okay. Then you have McDonald, who really made a lot of movement from the end of the season through the process, and he's up to 5 on your list. Van Ness from Iowa, the kid from USC, and then you also have an Ojulari. So we know that there's another Ojulari already in the NFL.
Yep.
Hall from Auburn is a name that we've heard quite a bit. And then White is a player. Matter of fact, you have White and Azoma rated a little bit lower than some other places that I've noticed. So you're not as high on those guys as some others. So talk about that next group.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off with White, with what you just mentioned, because it's funny. In a group where I have White as the number 10 edge rusher in this class, it's like, oh, number 10, there's that many guys in front of him. I mean, numerically, the actual grade, I have him basically right in the same tier as the 2 or 3 guys ahead of him. So, again, if you're looking for – and he has a very unique skill set, right? This is a guy that I don't even know where he's going to play. He could play 5-tech. He could play 3-tech. I think you get him in the building and you figure it out later. He is a gifted athlete. Gifted straight line athlete, I should say. A lot of power. Very mature kid, too. Remember, he just started playing DN just a few years ago, transferred from Old Dominion, suffered a couple of injuries. So we really only saw one real full season of Keon White at a high level of college football, and he performed at a really high level. Him and Lucas Van Ness are really similar players to me. And, you know, these guys, what they have that some of these others don't is unbelievable size and ability to set the edge. And there are some defensive coordinators that they value that out of their edge defenders as much as the pass rush. Can you set a hard edge against the run? Or do we need to bring you off the field? Let's use Will McDonald as an example, right? Will McDonald's going to get drafted because he scares the crap out of you as a pass rusher. But at under 240 pounds with Bambi legs, he might not be an every down player, but you still might use a top 20 pick on him. Some teams are not going to like that, right? You don't want a specialty player, but we've seen it with remember when Bruce Irvin got picked by the Seahawks? I think it was a top 10 years ago, right? And everyone's like, what was that? They just wanted a nasty third down pass rusher, and that means a lot in the NFL. So philosophy-wise, schematically, you know, the stack from, you know, the 5th-rated edge defender down to, I would say, the 11th, Azuma from Kansas State, it's going to be very similar to the tone I talked about with Murphy, Wilson, and Smith. Is what scheme do you run? What role do you need? And then you basically pick your guy out of that.
And by the way, your rankings, are they going to be available? Are you updating those for the website?
Still waiting to hear back if we'll get to the website on the front page. But if at the very least, it'll be found in the R-Lads draft hub.
Okay.
So it might not be on the front page because that's more of the R-Lads team scouting ranks, which still needs to be updated as well. But my personal ranks, at the very least, will be put in the draft.
So some of these names that you're still not even seeing, you can check them out because you go 20 deep. We're only listening to 10. Out of those, now again, Zuma is 11. So from Diaby and Foskey, these are names people are familiar with. Henry and Gay and Abdullah, Morris, Ramirez, and Phelps. Those round out your top 20. Give me one of those players that you think maybe like a swing for the fences kind of guy.
Ali Gay is someone that it really intrigues me. He was probably the best LSU defender up front in 2020. 2021 marred by multiple lower body injuries. Then we go through a coaching change. He changed his role. They changed their scheme. And no matter what, every coach that worked with LSU all raved about his ability to adapt. And how often do we hear that out of NFL coaches? Can you come into the NFL, especially not as a highlight player, first-round player, and adapt to what we do? And Gay is the kind of guy that at the very least, you know, he's going to come in and be a solid backup rotational player because of how well he can adapt and his skill set. I mean, he's huge. He's powerful. He's got good bend. But I also think we have not seen anything close to his best football. Another guy that's still relatively to everyone else, compared to everyone else, still relatively new to the game and still has probably not had the best coaching and developing experience at LSU because of everything that's happened over there since their national championship run. I believe someone's going to get a big-time value out of him in day 3.
And I'm just looking here. I don't – you didn't put Carter in your top 20? Andre?
Which one?
Why?
No, Andre.
Give me is he the only other name, or do you have another name other than Carter that you're not as high on than most people?
Let's see. Carter's definitely one of them. Zach Harrison, Ohio State. I have him as a mid to late day 3 pick. Physically gifted. I mean, both these guys are huge. They're long, and they are explosive in a straight line. But what I don't like in relation to being a pass rusher, especially Carter, because he's going to come into the league weak, undersized, needs to live in the weight room for 2-3 years and eat a lot of food because, he's just not physically ready to handle the edge in the NFL. But both these guys, they don't move that well in a phone booth, meaning they don't miss a lot of contact from blockers. And I think they're going to have a hard time winning secondary rush moves if they don't initially win off the edge. And, Carter has had a rough pre-draft process, right? He had outstanding production in 2021, put himself on the radar. 2022, you go deep into his tape, nothing jumps out at you. He was used schematically a little different, and there was nothing else on that defense that teams paid attention to. So he did get doubled a lot, got chipped a lot. But what he's done in the pre-draft process, it hasn't been overly impressive other than the fact that he's long. I mean, bench press reps, they're not a huge deal, but it's a metric that you have to look at. I mean, does this guy have a base level of strength? 11 bench press reps. I mean,
wow.
Kickers and punters get that at the combine.
I mean, Army. What are we doing over there? I thought that's like a prerequisite to being in the Army.
My brother went to West Point. I'll tell you what, my brother went to West Point, and trust me, I would love to put an Army guy in a top high up in my stack, but removing the emotion from it, they don't develop the way other college football players do because everything that is included in being a student, even a student athlete at the Naval, West Point, Air Force academies, they don't get to train as nearly as much. They don't get to practice nearly as much. I mean, they have basically jobs, and it's a really hard academic program as well. So that is why some people do like Andre Carter. Is they're going to say, hey, this could be the first time he actually gets to focus fully on football. But I just think it's a 2 to 3 year project. Okay. So when I hear that in my head, even if I do like the upside, it's still, that's a day 3 territory for me.
All right. All right. Now, by the way, before we move on, and I'll ask you this question, each position here too, and that is, give me a player that scares you the most in the top 10, someone that could be a complete miss.
I'm going to go with the kid from USC who I've talked up with you a few times, Tuli Tuipulotu, because of his style of play is very much based on hand strength, physically mauling guys, and making something happen after that, right? Like beating the guy at the point of attack with his hands, being stronger, more powerful. He's not going to be stronger and more powerful than NFL linemen. And then you look at some of the other measurables, the arm length, shorter than average. Body weight, he weighed in a little bit lighter than I thought he would, and we knew he was not going to be explosive. So this is the kind of guy that, how is he going to win the NFL other than the fact that he tries hard?